adrenaline was going. At one time, I think we had 4 of these matches going on.
Wednesday, December 13th, 2000. 7 men slipped through the walls of America's most secure prison, and in their wake, left a manhunt that would grip the nation. They were part of the unit's maintenance crew. In broad daylight, they conspired. They volunteered to stay behind during lunch to finish warehouse work. At approximately 11:20 a.m., the ringleader initiated the plan, subduing the civilian supervisor under the guise of a request, while the other held him at knife point. One by one, they incapacitated the civilian workers, the guards, and other inmates that were not involved in the plan. The victims were tied up in an electrical room. They stole civilian clothing, IDs, and credit cards, then impersonated guards over the phone to mislead supervisors. At the rear gate, the trio overpowered a guard and seized weapons, then escaped in a state vehicle. For over 20 minutes after the escape, nobody knew what had happened. Enough time to flee and settle far away. In this video, we will reveal everything. The escape. Their life before and after the escape. Even the crimes that put them behind bars. It all started in the one place prison guards never fully watched, the maintenance wing, where inmates wore gloves, handled tools, and moved freely among civilians. Weeks earlier, George Rivas, the ringleader, had studied every blind spot. He watched how civilian supervisors stored their keys, how shift rotations occurred, how many guards were on duty. The escape required only 5 critical elements: access to unsecured areas, disguises and IDs, weapons, communication control, and a getaway vehicle. They rehearsed subtle phrases to use during the escape. They memorized call protocols between guard stations. Rodriguez, the ex-millionaire with a photographic memory, transcribed the phone routing patterns. Murphy monitored the guard's smoking breaks. Garcia and Halprin mapped the schedule of deliveries. On that day, December 13, 2000, at 11:20 a.m. Inside the warehouse, the lunch bell echoes. Civilians begin gathering their things. The 7 men, all assigned to maintenance and other work detail, volunteer to stay behind, claiming they had extra sweeping and tool check-ins. George Rivas moves first. He walks to the civilian foreman under the pretense of needing assistance with a shelving unit. As the man turns, Rivas lunges. Garcia grips the man's neck. They had blades flashing. Within 15 minutes, the team silently overwhelms 14 people. 9 civilian workers, 4 correctional officers, and 3 inmates uninvolved in the plan. They use plastic restraints, handcuffs, belts. One by one, they drag the captives into the electrical room, a confined space the crew had already selected. Rivas tells one civilian, "You're not going to die today, if you don't fight." They strip civilian uniforms, IDs, wallets, radios. Halprin copies badge numbers. Rodriguez removes license plates from a prison maintenance vehicle and replaces them with dummy tags he'd prepared days earlier. From a corner desk, Murphy picks up the prison phone and calls the tower, mimicking a civilian foreman. "This is Mr. Blackwell from maintenance. We've had an incident, radio's acting up. Send someone to check gate 3, won't you?" The guard on the other end, recognizing the voice cadence and extension number, complies. Meanwhile, Rodriguez, dressed in a stolen uniform, greets the arriving officer at the rear sally port. Calmly, professionally, he said, "We've got a gas leak issue in the shop. Orders to shut it down. Bring the clipboard." The guard hesitates, then walks through the gate. He never walks back out. Once the gate was secured, they move fast. They overpower the guard and head directly for the armory cage, a compact weapons locker near the garage. Inside were 14 pistols, a 12-gauge shotgun, an AR-15 rifle, over 100 rounds of ammunition. They load up, wrap the weapons in cloth, and pile into the stolen white prison maintenance truck. They drive slowly at first, matching prison traffic speed. At the outer perimeter checkpoint, Garcia flashes a stolen ID and waves to the tower guard. Over the radio, the tower guard speaks, "All clear." Garcia answered, "Yeah, just civilians heading to San Antonio for part runs. Captain's orders." The gate slides open, and the truck pulls onto Highway 181. By the time Connally's staff discovers the missing civilians, the Texas 7 are 20 minutes away. 7 fugitives. Armed, hardened, and unified by a single, desperate objective, vanish before the state can react. For the first time in years, these men breathe free air. By late afternoon, the Texas 7 abandoned the prison truck in a Walmart parking lot in San Antonio. They split up, change clothes, and regroup inside a prearranged red suburban SUV parked earlier by a civilian accomplice. They head toward Houston, then Pearland, a suburb where they rob a Radio Shack on December 14th. The haul: cash, police scanners, batteries, and radio equipment, tools to track police activity and jam dispatch channels. Rivas insists they leave nothing to chance. They pay cash at motels, avoid cameras, and assign code names: Little Joe, Papa George, The Preacher, Red, Blue, Baby, and Easy Money. On December 19, 2000, they move into Coachlight RV Park, in Woodland Park, Colorado, a sleepy mountain town near Colorado Springs. Using fake names, they claim to be Christian missionaries from the Faithful Followers. Rivas and Rodriguez pose as group leaders. Murphy, a registered sex offender, wears wire-rimmed glasses and keeps to himself. Halprin, the youngest, blends in quietly. They begin attending local churches, quoting scripture, and even passing out tracts. But no lie survives exposure. The mask would crack on Christmas Eve. On the outside, they looked like regular guys, working jobs, going to church, keeping to themselves. But underneath, every one of them carried a story. Before the escape, they lived whole lives most people never knew about. And to understand what happened next, you have to know who they really were. First of the 7, Joseph Christopher Garcia. Born on November 6, 1971, in San Antonio, Texas. By age 24, he was arrested and convicted for murdering Miguel Luna in 1996, during a drunken confrontation, an impulsive act born from escalating anger. On the night of September 17, 1996, inside a bar, Joseph Garcia had been drinking for hours. He had consumed several drinks, reportedly whiskey and beer. Miguel Luna, an acquaintance from the neighborhood, walked into the bar with friends. According to witness statements, a brief exchange occurred, quiet at first, then sharp. The topic was unclear. Garcia stands, wobbles slightly. Luna raises his hand as if to de-escalate. "Man, sit down. You've had enough." Luna says, according to testimony. Garcia's eyes narrow. He reaches into his waistband and draws out a blade. A single but heavy thrust into Luna's chest, just below the sternum. As blood flows heavily, Luna stumbles backward, clutching his chest, then collapses between two bar stools as he bleeds. One patron tries CPR. Another went for the payphone, calling for emergency. While Garcia already fled the scene, police arrived after a few minutes and trailed him. When caught, the blood on his jeans and boots matched the victim's. A small folding knife was later found tossed into a bush 2 houses down from where he was arrested. Fingerprints matched Garcia's right thumb. He was taken into custody and later charged with first-degree murder. Joseph C. Garcia was sentenced to 50 years in prison, eligible for parole after 25 years, which would have made him eligible in 2021, had he not escaped in 2000. He joined the warehouse crew, handling pallets and sweeping floors. Prison psychologists noted he was not otherwise violent in prison. Interacting daily with Rivas, Rodriguez, and others, Garcia slowly emerged as the one holding a blade at the breakout, exhibiting courage and cold commitment. Next is the ringleader. The one who led the Texas 7. He watched guards' routines for months, quiet, calculating, unafraid. Then, one morning in December 2000, he said, "We're done being here. This is George Rivas." Born on May 6, 1970, in El Paso, Rivas came of age challenged. At 11, he allegedly molested a young relative. By 18, he was convicted of burglary and probation. Between 1989 and 1993, he carried out a string of armed robberies across Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. Reportedly up to a dozen, including big-score jobs like Oshman's Sporting Goods and a Toys R Us warehouse. In 1993, he was arrested and convicted in El Paso for aggravated robbery and kidnapping, earning 17 consecutive 15-to-life sentences. A forensic psychologist later testified that Rivas was a manipulating mastermind, capable of charismatic leadership and violent control. He's not only the first among the 7, but the brains behind the entire operation. He was 18 years old. Recently graduated. Full of promise, or so everyone thought. But in January 1989, George Rivas chose a different path. On the night of January 5, 1989, he dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie. Inside a neighborhood in South Texas, he quietly enters a house. He moves into the master bedroom. On the dresser, a mother's gold watch. In a nightstand drawer, a set of tools. Silently, Rivas pockets the watch and the tools. With the items tucked away, Rivas retraces his steps to the front door and flee the house. Days later, Rivas, under probation, returned to Sears and then AutoZone, jobs while on paper, but the tension lingered. His probation was revoked years later, fueled by this burglary and later crimes. Rivas himself confirmed under oath that on January 5, 1989, he entered a home without permission, was charged with burglary of habitation, and opted for probation to avoid prison. He testified he worked, attended college, and avoided trouble until the next major offense in 1992. October 3, 1992, Radio Shack robbery. As the quiet store nears closing time, Rivas, dressing casually, enters, posing as a customer. He asks about a radio, then, coolly, and abruptly, pulls a handgun as he yells, "Empty the safe. I want all the money and your radios." He forces the salesperson to the floor and steals cash, merchandise, and police-grade scanners. He then moves to the exit and disappears into the afternoon traffic. This heist reveals his pattern: impersonate, threaten, and exit quickly. 20 days later, on October 23, 1992, he storms Checker Auto Parts. Posing as a customer, he examines car batteries as he observes the place. Once alone with a salesman, he pulls a pistol, then orders, "Take that off. Handcuff yourself. Stay quiet." He forces the salesperson into a restroom, then switches uniforms, taken from the employee. He uses the worker's key to open the safe and withdraws all cash on hand. He calmly walked out in stolen clothes, leaving the employee behind. Again, after 3 weeks' break, on November 13, 1992, he strikes Oshman's Sporting Goods, in El Paso. At closing hour, Rivas strolls in, asking to look at ski boots, a customer's guys again. He convinces the assistant manager to stay late, saying he needs to wait for his friend. And just as the last shoppers leave, he raises a firearm, announcing the robbery. Using a two-way radio, he calls in an accomplice. When staff arrive, he claims to be security, orders them to line up, then forces them to handcuff themselves to heavy equipment. He calmly directs them to load 58 firearms and $5,095 cash into bags, all handled by the staff under his instruction. Before leaving, he warns, "I have your license plates. Don't call the cops, or I'll be back." He exits the place. After a few months, on May 12, 1993, at Furr's grocery store. Early in the morning, Rivas enters wearing a blonde wig, bold as before. He waves a gun, rounding up staff into a back room. He demands all available cash from registers. Took them and leaves. Next and last, on May 25, 1993, Toys R Us standoff. At midday, Rivas and a partner pose as security, entering the store with gun concealed. Having the employees gather in one place and robbery underway, a clerk escapes and calls police. Chaos erupts. Rivas and his accomplice retreat into vents, using staff as shields. SWAT storms in. After a tense 3-hour standoff, eventually, Rivas is found and arrested. Authorities recover weapons stolen from Oshman's. Rivas graduated Isleta High School in 1988, attended the University of Texas at El Paso briefly, and worked as a sheriff's investigator, all before descending into armed robbery. His signature pattern was impersonation, self-reliant mobility, and calm intimidation, traits later mirrored in the Texas 7 escape. He was charged with multiple counts of aggravated robbery, kidnapping, burglary. Sentenced to 17 consecutive life terms for armed robberies, and 18th life sentence for kidnapping. Rivas arrives the John B. Connally Unit around 1995, transferring from El Paso after serving the beginning of his 17 life sentence term. Over the next 5 years, he works in the warehouse detail, moving pallets, sweeping floors, and observing corrections routines. As chronicled by forensic psychologist Dr. Richard Coons, Rivas is patient and calculating, able to bide his time and watch, and the warehouse offers perfect cover for his planning. He routinely skips lunch or volunteers for overtime to refine every detail of the guard shifts, patrol rotations, and shift handoffs. He notes where cameras are blind and where civilian maintenance workers operate unsupervised. In that warehouse, he read the prison like a book. Next of the 7 is the one who was nearly free, only to risk it all again. This is the hidden story of Patrick Henry Murphy, Jr. Born October 3, 1961, in Dallas, Texas. Testimony during his 2003 trial detailed severe neglect in Dallas housing projects, abuse by caregivers, abandonment, and early criminal behavior like shoplifting and running away. Committed unauthorized vehicle use and ran away as a teenager. March 1984. Patrick Murphy, in his early 20s, and burdened by a troubled childhood, picked the lock on his former high school acquaintance's apartment. The door opened silently behind him as he stepped inside. He grabbed her, pointing a knife, pressing it to her throat. The woman, age 23, froze. Murphy forced her to the floor, tied her wrists behind her back, blindfolded her, and sexually assaulted her. The victim later testified, "He held a knife to my throat and said, 'Don't scream.' He fled quietly, leaving her behind still bound." The victim identified him in police interviews. Physical evidence included knife marks and bindings consistent with her account. Murphy was arrested shortly afterward and charged with aggravated sexual assault. His confession and the method, knife at throat, bonds, and forced compliance, led to a jury trial and conviction in 1984. He was sentenced to 50 years behind bars in 1984 for aggravated sexual assault with a deadly weapon. But under Texas law at the time, his accrued good time and work credits meant he was eligible for mandatory release in just over 20 years, with only about 5 years remaining by late 2000. Following his March 1984 conviction, Murphy began serving a 50-year sentence. He made the journey through multiple Texas facilities over the next 16 years. While in Dallas County Prison, in various units, Murphy committed minor infractions, possession of tobacco, a radio, and performing unauthorized religious services, but no violent incidents. He remained classified low to medium security, primarily working in custodial roles, including maintenance and warehouse duties. In the late 1990s, inside the Connally Unit chapel, Murphy converted to Buddhism, becoming an advocate for meditation and peace among fellow inmates. He shared that the practice helped him find inner peace and cope with his past. His spiritual path later became central in pleas for clemency. By December 2000, Murphy had only about 5 years left until release. He was fully integrated into the maintenance crew alongside the others. Rivas assigned Murphy the role of lookout, verbalizing his function during trial. Observers recovered a handwritten note found post-escape in Murphy's bunk. It read, "I refuse to abide by the dictations of a police state. Today I fire the first shot of the new revolution." From a violent crime in 1984, to finding Buddha in cell block silence, and finally joining a deadly jailbreak, Patrick Murphy's prison years were marked by internal transformation and a conflicted quest for escape. Next is Michael Rodriguez. Born on October 29, 1962, in San Antonio. Rodriguez was a former lifeguard, studied teacher training, and co-owned a restaurant with his brother, Mark. Known as a family man, he married Teresa Rodriguez and held two $150,000 life insurance policies in his name. Chilling fact, Rodriguez began referring to Teresa as fat, and shared with his brother Mark a desire to benefit from a payout. Rodriguez wrote preemptive letters claiming widowhood to a younger woman before the crime happened. The two brothers had one motive: life insurance. Mark Rodriguez, 17, approached Rolando Ruiz, a 20-year-old ex-con, with an offer of $2,000 to kill Teresa Rodriguez, the wife of Michael Rodriguez. $1,000 up front. The trio arranged the hit to align with Michael and Teresa's evening plans. On July 10, 1992, Ruiz waits at a restaurant but backs out upon spotting a security guard. Next day he tried again, but it wasn't successful. Then finally on July 14, Ruiz waits as they drive home. On the night of July 14, 1992, around 8 p.m., he stood in the darkness, watching as Teresa stepped out of the Mercedes. Ruiz calmly asked the way from Mark. As Teresa exited the car, he raised a .357 Magnum to her head and pulled the trigger, one bullet, and she died right there. Ruiz walked away to his truck, discarded it later, played basketball, then slept. Mark delivered the second $1,000 payment on July 17. 29-year-old Teresa was a devoted daughter, wife, and mother, pursuing a career in insurance, and admired in her community. USAA, Teresa's employer, offered a $50,000 reward, prompting a tip that led to Ruiz's arrest on July 23, 1992. Ruiz confessed, and implicating both brothers in the plot. Police uncovered Michael had applied for multiple insurance policies, potential payout exceeding $250,000. Michael Ruiz was convicted, sentenced to death, and eventually executed on March 7, 2017. Michael and Mark Rodriguez took life sentences via plea agreements in 1995. He was then transferred to the Connally Unit, where he later joined the Texas 7 Escape in 2000. He worked in the warehouse detail, moving pallets under industrial lights. Engaged in Bible studies and vocational programs. Family visits dwindled. He became increasingly reserved, forming alliances with other long-term inmates, including George Rivas and Joseph Garcia. The next was the youngest of them and was seen as the weakest link. Once a babysitter, later a brutal abuser, then a man who risked everything on one final act of freedom. This is the story of Randy Ethan Halprin. Born September 13, 1977, in McKinney, Texas. Testimony reveals Halprin experienced emotional neglect and abuse growing up, struggling to find stability. He did odd maintenance jobs, dated women, lacked purpose. By age 19, he was facing serious charges. In Arlington apartment where Halprin worked as a babysitter. An 18-month-old toddler, Jared, plays quietly in the living room. Randy Halprin enters after babysitting through the evening. Jared's cries begin, soft at first, then persistent. Halprin, under the influence of LSD that evening, grows increasingly agitated. He picks up the child, shakes him, then slams him down repeatedly on the hard floor. The toddler's whimpers echo in the empty apartment. Neighbors later reported hearing loud thumps and muffled cries. Inside, Halprin breaks Jared's arms and legs, fractures his skull, and burns the child's tongue, likely with a cigarette. When the child cries, Halprin mocks his tone, repeating it in a harsh, disdainful voice, according to police testimony. The following morning, Jared is lifelessly fragile, limping, in pain, unable to walk. Halprin panics and urges the toddler's mother to take him to the hospital. He denied, deflected, even blamed the mother, until the polygraph shattered his lies. At the hospital, Jared's injuries prompted a police inquiry. A polygraph exam revealed Halprin's guilt. In confession, he admitted, "I beat and kicked him when he wouldn't stop crying." But he denied torturing, he lied about burning him. Medical staff, however, found wounds consistent with burns to the tongue. He was arrested and charged. He pleaded guilty to injury to a child, and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Classified as laborer, he worked side by side with the rest. Never violent in prison. Seen as the weakest link in leadership evaluations. He expressed deep remorse, saying he became a monster in that moment, and he will never forgive himself. Yet he aligned with Rivas's plan, believing escape was his only avenue to not die in prison. At 37, Harper was the oldest of the 7, holding secrets too heavy to bear. He'd lived through violence before, now, he ended it on his own terms. Born on September 10, 1963, in Danville, Illinois, moved to El Paso as a teen. His father was a decorated Green Beret. His mother allegedly abused and abandoned him and his brother. His brother described both being beaten by their mother and emotionally neglected by their father's absence. Known as a disciplined student and airborne quality athlete, he earned an associate degree and had Green Beret-like training, yet spiraled under emotional rejection. Harper committed 3 separate sexual assaults between mid-1993 and late 1994 in El Paso, each following a similar pattern. He surprised victims inside their homes, bound them, and repeatedly sexually assaulted them. Medical examinations confirmed serious physical and emotional trauma in each case. The first crime was in 1993. A single woman returns home late. Harper, unnoticed, enters through an unsecured front door, a common risk in the neighborhood. He surprises her in the living room, restrains her wrists with duct tape, and violently sexually assaults her. She later recalls being bound to a chair, unable to move or call for help. A neighbor hears muffled crying and calls police. The victim is found bound, with physical injuries consistent with forced restraint. The second crime was in late 1993. Harper again enters unnoticed, this time through an unlocked window. He ties the woman to a tree in the backyard, leaving her bound for hours while he assaults her. The victim is found confused and in pain, with rope abrasions and trauma visible. Investigators later testify that she was terrorized throughout the ordeal. Months later, in mid-1994, he strikes again. Harper gains entry through a door mistakenly left open, again taking advantage of typical residential security lapses. He binds the woman's arms behind her back, blindfolds her, and assault follows. She recounts waking in darkness, her arms pulled tight, unable to see or speak. Forensic evidence later confirms the blindfold and bindings, and she is treated for significant physical injury. Police respond to a 911 call and arrived at the house. Victim recounts, a stranger entered unexpectedly, forced her into the bedroom, tied her wrists, blindfolded her, and attacked her. Medical exams confirm multiple injuries consistent with binding and forceful restraint. Police link this assault with 2 earlier cases from 1993 to 1994, each following the same method. Detectives compile evidence, mapped locations, assault descriptions, home layouts, and begin constructing a behavioral profile. They note, entries occur when residents are alone. Doors or windows left unsecured. Extended assault duration. Victims consistently bound and repeatedly assaulted. Suspected offender, a man known to victims from the neighborhood, educated, disciplined, Larry Harper stands out due to prior civilian reputation and proximity. Police obtain a warrant based on matching victim statements and assault locations. Harper is tracked to a local residence and arrested without incident. He confesses, and admits entry and assault but offers few justifications. He agrees to a psychological evaluation, revealing severe remorse and self-loathing. Within days, Harper is formally charged with 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault. Although each assault was treated as an individual case, local prosecutors later concluded that all 3 took place in homes with doors and windows left unlocked. Victims suffered complex trauma, both physical and emotional. Harper's methods were terrifyingly identical. He was sentenced to 3 concurrent 50-year terms, plus additional 30-year terms. He was effectively to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Classified as a laborer, he worked in prison maintenance alongside the six. No records show any violence or infractions during incarceration. Psychiatrists described him as chronically depressed, carrying a heavy remorse for his past. Though not a leader, he was recruited by Rivas into the escape plan and participated in warehouse shifts, ID gathering, and rehearsal of procedures. This one has tried to escape from prison before. The Texas 7 was in fact his second attempt. He is Donald Newberry. Born on May 18, 1962, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, raised in Texas. He was first incarcerated in 1981 for armed robbery in Travis County, Texas. But he didn't just commit crimes on the outside. Inside Travis County Jail, he proved something else, that confinement meant nothing to him. Newberry waits for night count. During inmate's shift, a guard opens his cell to check the lock. Newberry leaps forward, grabs a broken light tube, and presses it against Officer Keller's throat, slicing his skin. With two other inmates, he attempts to force the guard back into the cell. A second officer sees the struggle and reacts instantaneously. Newberry is pulled back as the tube shatters. The guard escapes serious injury. The attempted breakout collapses in seconds, caught before it escalates. He's classified as maximum risk. Records show, from 1981 to 85, he amassed multiple infractions, 9 physical fights, disobeying orders, and 1 escape attempt. At 19, he already broke the rules. That broken tube marked the start of his violent resistance, not just survival, but domination. After he was released, he returned for another armed robbery in 1987. He was suspected in around a dozen holdups in the mid-80s. Paroled in 1985 and again in 1992, he briefly tried to rebuild, but his past loomed. In the evening of July 18, 1997, at La Quinta Inn. He walked in like any other guest, but he wasn't there to check in. He was 38. Bearing a rugged demeanor and dressed casually, he approaches the desk. Without warning, he yanks a sawed-off shotgun from under his shirt. "Empty it. Now." Newberry leans over the counter and demands $65 in cash, weapon firm in hand. The clerk puts the money forward, and he pockets it. He looks through the lobby, ensuring no witnesses. Then he walks out. The motel's security footage captured him, enough for police to identify and arrest him swiftly. Investigators noted a pattern: 3 decades of armed robbery, including this act at the hotel, earning him a 99-year sentence. Detectives analyzed the footage, linking the image to a string of I-35 corridor robberies, 2 prior armed holdups, and parole violations. Police locate Newberry at a rural home, his photo resembling the man on the surveillance, and he is taken into custody. Police confiscate clothing matching the one in the video. Detailed maps of I-35 corridor. A sawed-off shotgun similar to the weapon used. Parole documents placing him in proximity to recent robberies. Newberry is booked for aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. Parole violations related to associating with known felons during the same period. He is transferred to Travis County Jail pending trial. Newberry faced a court packed with prosecutors and local residents. Prosecutors referenced his 2 prior armed robbery convictions, 1981, 1987, and this new incident. Evidence included the motel surveillance video and his matching attire. He was found guilty of aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. He was sentenced to 99 years in prison. It was noted that a previous parole in 1992 had ended in more crime, leaving non-negotiable jail time ahead. In mid-2000, Newberry is taken into a Connally Unit. His records show no serious infractions in the months leading up, placing him on maintenance duty within the prison. Right there, complete, they planned the escape of the Texas 7. After joining the church and living free again, they planned a robbery. And that led them to the next phase of life. December 24, 2000, Irving, Texas, Oshman Sporting Goods, 6 p.m. As holiday shoppers bustle around, the Texas 7 stormed the store with military precision. Disguised as security officers and employees, they wait until closing time. When staff begin locking up, they pull guns, push clerks into the back, and duct tape their wrists. They load 40 guns, ammunition, scopes, and cash into duffel bags. But someone trips the silent alarm. Irving Police Officer Aubrey Hawkins, 29, a husband and father, responds within minutes. He pulls into the back parking lot. Never had time to draw his weapon. Rivas and Garcia unload on the patrol car. They shot Hawkins 11 times, then run him over as the gang flees. They fire on backup units before vanishing into the dark. From December 25th to January 19th, the state erupts. $440,000 reward announced. $300,000 from state and local law enforcements, and $140,000 from FBI to whoever finds them. Billboards go up in every major city. FBI places the Texas 7 on its 10 most wanted list. A nationwide manhunt begins. Meanwhile, the group celebrates a muted Christmas in Colorado, watching the Hawkins coverage on local news. On January 20, 2001, Fox TV airs a primetime special on the escape. Over 60 million viewers tune in. A viewer from Colorado recognizes the faithful followers at the RV park. She calls the FBI. By the next day, dozens of agents surround the Coachlight RV park. Joseph Garcia, Michael Rodriguez, and George Rivas are captured at a gas station while trying to flee. Randy Halprin surrenders quietly inside the trailer. On January 22, Patrick Murphy and Donald Newberry hit at a Holiday Inn in Colorado Springs. They call 911 and negotiate their surrender on live TV. Larry James Harper, cornered by police in a wooded area, pulls a handgun and dies by suicide before arrest. From a dusty warehouse in South Texas to a blood-stained parking lot in Irving and the snowbanks of Colorado, the Texas 7 ran, lied, and killed, but they did not escape justice. From TV screens to tactical operations, their network of lies unraveled in less than 24 hours. One dead, Harper. The operation that began with a warehouse heist ended swiftly and decisively. The 6 surviving fugitives were held in federal custody before being extradited to Texas. Each was indicted on capital murder charges, particularly the slaying of Officer Aubrey Hawkins, alongside multiple counts related to the escape and armed robbery. Following a series of trials in Tarrant County, juries convicted all 6 surviving members under Texas's law of parties, which deems accomplices equally culpable for capital offenses. Sentencing was uniform, death by lethal injection for each defendant. The executions were carried out over the subsequent decade. Michael Anthony Rodriguez, executed on August 14, 2008, after waiving his appeals. George Angel Rivas Jr., the ringleader, executed on February 29, 2012. Donald Keith Newberry, executed on February 4, 2015. Joseph Christopher Garcia, executed on December 4, 2018. Their bodies were interred at the Captain Joe Bird Cemetery in Huntsville. Patrick Henry Murphy Jr. and Randy Ethan Halprin, the last 2 alive. Patrick Murphy Jr., twice scheduled for execution. In 2019, the Supreme Court halted his execution over religious rights, requested Buddhist priest presence officials denied. He awaits further clemency review, no current execution date. Randy Ethan Halprin, scheduled in October 2019. In November 2024, Texas Court of Criminal Appeals granted a new trial due to confirmed anti-Semitic bias by the original judge, Vickers Cunningham. Dallas County DA will pursue the death penalty again in the retrial. Thank you for staying with us through this one. If you want to see more videos like this, where we uncover the deep crime stories in the US, then subscribe to this channel. Like this video. And turn on the notification bell to be notified when we drop another one tomorrow.